NFRW sisters. So glad that you're joining us for another Bite-Sized Tools. This show is presented by your NFRW Program Committee. I'm Ann Shockett, Program Chair, and also your past NFRW President. It's such a wonderful experience to work with the members of the NFRW Program Committee, including my Vice Chair, Nancy Almasi of Virginia, and our liaison to the Bite-Sized Tools, Michelle Odom of Louisiana. We help create new programming and assist all of our committees with communicating their work straight to you. So thank you, President Julie Harris, for giving us the wheel of this vehicle to drive bite-sized, practical information from our national committees to you, our members, clubs, and state federations. Now, each term, the NFRW president can create additional committees to complement and also enhance our mission. And one of those committees is the Advocacy Training Committee. It's chaired by Deborah Tilden of Montana, and the vice chair is Joni Miller of Louisiana. Now, a little bit about Deborah, who's going to be our host for today. Her passion lies in advocacy work, and she's been looking forward to sharing her knowledge on the do's and don'ts of becoming an effective advocate. Deborah is integrally involved in our federation and in the Republican Party. She's served as president and VP of several NFRW clubs, and she's a keynote speaker, an author, advocate, life coach, citizen lobbyist, and the list goes on. Deborah is co-founder of the Smart Women's Healthcare and no stranger to the local, state, and national platforms to transform public policy. Deborah believes, and these are her words, that collaboration and connection are two vital keys to unifying us in standing for truth and transforming our culture for better public policy in women's issues. She was an amici in the Dobbs case that toppled Roe v. Wade. She's an executive producer with Mighty Motion Pictures since January of last year. She and her husband, Michael, live in Montana. She's the mom of 4, 1 angel baby, and 3 young adults, including a U.S. Marine. Thank you for your service. So without further ado, let's learn how to become more effective advocates. Deborah Tilden.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, President Julie and Michelle. You guys have helped tremendously. And thank you again, Julie, for giving me the honor to serve on this committee and serving with such an amazing group of women. So welcome everybody for taking the time out of your busy schedules to you guys are sisters to me. I feel like we're just sisters making a difference in the world that we live in today. First, I want to introduce you to my amazing committee, our team, and like Ann introduced, Joni Miller is our co-chair. She will be taking the Q&A today. So if you have questions today, just put those in the chat and we will do that at the very end. I love my team. Our advisor is Jenny Frederick from Wisconsin. Margie Crawford from Oregon. She's our secretary. She keeps the notes for our meetings. Glenda Edgeworth from Montana. Isabel Hogue from Indiana. Jan Hopkins from Florida. Daryl Jacobson Barnes from Arizona. Deborah Nolan from Arkansas. Laurel Stifler from Kansas. And Maury Strozier in Indiana. It's been such an honor to work with these ladies for the last few months. But first, let's just jump into advocacy. Many of you could probably do this training yourself. You are all such amazingly gifted, talented, active women in the process in our world today. But let's just define it simply. Any action that speaks in favor of, recommends, argues for a cause, supports or defends or pleads on behalf of another. You know, another term that a lot of us are probably familiar with is servant leadership. And, you know, that I know for myself, I've taken many trainings over the years just to really understand what that looks like. Advocating from the heart of a servant for the good of others, for what is good, right, and true. And in this world we live in today, there's things that are pretty upside down at times that, and it's just starting from that framework. And true advocacy is not self-serving. And what we do at NFRW is advocate for good public policy at every level that protects our republic and follows our United States Constitution for the good of future generations, which is our posterity. And every public policy should be forward-thinking in strategy and should establish how it impacts children today, generations. I see that often as a line in the sand when we're looking at things. How is it going to affect the children and policies of the future? What will our legacy be? And because we stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us, our founding fathers and mothers, our suffrage sisters that we just celebrate the 100-year anniversary of women's right to vote just a few years ago, and the generations of service men and women who fought, bled, and died so that we might prosper and live as free people. That does make me emotional. Those people advocated on our behalf, not knowing any of us, but for generations. They looked out 7 generations ahead. And speaking of founding fathers and mothers, I have a kind of a family fun fact. I have an ancestor, Samuel Huntington, who signed the Declaration of Independence. And he and his brother Simon served on some of the first Continental Congress. So in studying my own family advocacy, fighting for the very beginnings of our nation, many today even are saying that we are in a 1775 moment in our nation's history. And just a few weeks back, in the famous words of Donald J. Trump, on the day of the assassination attempt on his life, we must fight, 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 and advocate for future generations. And our focus needs to be, and it must be unwavering, hyper-focused, not distractible. It's easy to get distracted today with so much noise out there. But like a racehorse with blinders running down the track, looking and moving straight ahead toward the prize. And that is restoring and protecting our republic for future generations in whatever sphere that looks like for you. So knowing the basics, as a life coach, I always, there's a lot of comparison that goes on in the world around us, but you compare to no one. I want to encourage every one of you. I mean, sometimes we struggle with this along the way of comparing ourselves and our giftings, our talents, what we're doing. Somebody else is doing, something better than we are. You compare to no one. And you have what it takes to whatever you've been called to. And one thing that I always emphasize too is comparison kills creativity, and it just takes too much space inside your head. So I encourage you to really ask yourself if you're dealing with that as you do different things that you're called to do. You are uniquely gifted for what you have been called to do. Everything up until this moment in your life has prepared and equipped you for what you are called to do at this moment in history for such a time as this. And I would ask you that if you're kind of trying to find your space, what are your skills, your talents, experience? What is your personality type? Those kinds of things matter. And are you a people person, or are you more behind the scenes? Do you love writing and wordsmithing? And do you like doing letters to the editor, opinion pieces, articles? Do you like to speak? I know this is one of those things that a lot of people don't necessarily like to speak in public. But, if that's something you feel called to do and you need to be able to do it, then I encourage you to take the classes to get better at that. Public speaking is one of the #1 fears that people have. But do podcasts, do Zoom training calls, webinars. And the other thing is, what is your own personal story? And does it play a role in your own personal advocacy? And I just encourage you, use all of those natural God-given talents that you've been uniquely given, and advocate for others. And a quote by Margaret Mead, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. So just in the basic framework, 4 steps, the who, what, when, and how of advocacy, I just want to go over that. So the who, it's all about relationships when you think about it. When you are just in every aspect of our life, if relationships are good and as you're wanting to advocate, it is really about having relationship with those people that you want to have influence over and influence with, and those that you're advocating for. So listen to those that you are advocating for. Don't assume, but seek first to understand before being understood. Know who you're advocating for, the issue or the cause that you are passionate about, and do your research. And know who you are advocating to, those that can help you move your advocacy further along. And who is your target audience? Who are the key decision makers that you need to have time with and you need to communicate with and take your message to? Get to know the staff, administrative assistants of those key influencers that you want to reach. Know the gatekeepers of the people you want to work with to bring the change that you are seeking. And here's one of the key things, like in my introduction that Anne said, the collaboration piece and connecting. Who can you partner with to further advance? Who are the sisters within the NFRW that have similar passions to what you have that we can be advocating for and build on that collaboration? And the other thing is to understand the structure and the responsibilities within, whether it's government, companies, agencies, the community, to know who to go to for help as an advocate for positive change in your local community, state, and around the nation. And another angle too that came to me this morning, it's not something I've seen in a lot of the materials, but who are your adversaries who might be working against you, and know their strategy and their messaging to counter it. We live in kind of upside down times, and there are things that we can sometimes be advocating for that there are people who are advocating against it. So, that's a reality to be mindful of. Don't let it take up a lot of the space, but it's to be aware. Like a good coach teaches their team the playbook of the opposing team so that they are able to better understand and know how to message to counter that. So then there's the what. What are the key points and messages that you need to communicate? What changes do you want to see? Be direct, be concise with your wording. Many of the people that you're going to be working with, they are very busy people and they want to know exactly. It's like a lot of times I'll hear, get to the point. What's your point? So what messaging gets people's attention? Because there's, like I said, there's so much noise out there so much of the time. Remember that facts tell, but stories sell. That is actually a marketing term. In a lot of different movements, you'll see stories being told. And then 3 would be when. Is there a timeline or an urgency? Like we're in an election cycle, so there is an element of urgency with some of the things that we are doing for who or what you are advocating for. Is there an event that you could invite influencers to? Have an event to even have someone who is an expert in what you're advocating for to come to an event and, invite as many people as you can, as many key influencers as you can. And then the how, number 4, how will you communicate and promote your message to those key decision makers? Using visuals. As you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And an important point is to create and memorize like an elevator pitch, something that's no more than a minute or two long, because you want to get their attention and get the ability to carry on the conversation at a different time. That's oftentimes building the relationship with assistants, gatekeepers, those people that are going to give you that appointment with those key influencers. Go to networking events and bring your materials, have your elevator pitch. Another amazing thing that we have today is using the media, not just social media, but your local newspapers, radio, call-in talk shows, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. There's so many now. Truth Social, Rumble, Telegram. Knowing the handles, the social media handles of those influencers that you want to reach, and make sure that you're bringing them in, following them, create a following yourself. You could even start a Rumble channel. I don't know if any of you ever done that, but that Rumble has the ability, and other platforms do as well, to start a Rumble channel, offer to write an article in a local paper, teach a class, and invite media to your events. And you can get a local media contact list and then create press releases to send out to those media contacts that you've made contact with. So many of you are doing so much advocacy work already. Many of the women that I've met along the way in the 13 years I've been with the NFRW work at local volunteers at local pregnancy healthcare centers, or work in human and sex trafficking rescue work. I, for myself, work extensively in abortion healing and recovery work, and working with women who are able to take legal steps in that regard. So in advocating for good public policy in government and beyond, in the other spheres of our life's influences. So just a little bit of our own advocacy team. We've specifically, since about March, been working on the border crisis. And there is so much, and those are things that we'll be working on in the future. But if you're advocating in your community and just wanting to better understand the border crisis, one of the great resources that we have found is with J.J. Carroll. He wrote the book Invaded. He is a Border Patrol agent and supervisor for 24 years under 6 different presidents. And he says over and over again, President Trump is by far the best border president anyone could ever have, working in those agencies, hands down. And Obama and Biden were the worst. So our team has been working on a flyer and other resources that we look forward to be sharing with you guys in the coming weeks and months for you to use in your local, state, and federal efforts in advocacy. So stay tuned to that, and stay tuned to keep your eye out on the weekly Capital Connections that come out every Friday. Those are amazing resources. So make sure that you, yourself, and your team, your clubs are sharing with your members and beyond. It's a great recruiting tool when you find something on there. So we're going to now phase into Q&A. It looks like there is a couple of questions that have come in. And so our lovely co-chair, Joanna Miller from Louisiana, will be actually, if you want to actually ask the question yourself, you can go to the bottom of the screen and it says raise hand. You can ask it yourself, or Joni is happy to ask those questions for you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Deb. Wow,
Yes.
great. Compliments to you. That was motivating and inspiring to go out there and advocate.
Yep.
Well, we do have a few questions, great questions for you. Excuse me. So, so many great ideas that you shared. So can you stress again the best way for us to specifically get involved in advocating?
Well, I would say it's like most of it, like I shared at the beginning, it's like you have your own personal story. And what I have found oftentimes is the things that people advocate most effectively with are the things that actually they've perhaps gone through or they have personal experience in. So it's really, I'm an advocate for journaling. Write down the things that you're passionate about. What are the things that you need to, um, are there other people in your local community or in your local club that are important to everybody to come together? Because again, the collaboration piece is very important. So the best ways getting involved in advocacy, it's talking to the people around you, having conversations with people. What are the things that you're seeing around you that are happening? A lot of the things that we've learned through our advocacy group has been issues that are surrounding the border crisis. So I hope that answers your question. It's still kind of broad, but I am more than happy to have conversations with people as well if there's specific areas. I know through the NFRW, there are some excellent resources I hope all of you have the NFRW app and that you go onto the website on a regular basis. There are so many excellent resources on there that can help give you some direction on, who to talk to. And it depends on if it's in your local government, state government, or federal level. There are different, depending on the issue that's going on in your community or what it is that if you're advocating for a people group, it's finding those people that have the equal passion for that. So I hope that answered your question.
Sounds great.
Okay.
And we have another question here from Leslie, and she is specifically asking if we will be emailing a list of tips that you have presented here today, Deb, or should we make up our own list based on your presentation?
I mean, I'm happy to send out what I have as far as the how-tos, because it is kind of help you, step by step, knowing and understanding the different, aspects of, because there is those steps of advocacy and it can feel overwhelming at times. But I will tell you, if you have collaboration and you have team members and you're all working together, I feel like just our own committee that we have been working with, everybody has brought their amazing gifts together. And when you start talking amongst ourselves, the things that you can get accomplished by the different giftings and talents people in, you kind of come together and merge together, and everybody's kind of given an assignment to do. And you just accomplish so much more together. There's a phrase I use all the time: teamwork makes the dream work, and together everybody accomplishes more.
Okay, here's another question. Deb, share what you believe is the best time to influence our decision makers, our lawmakers. When's the best time?
Well, it's so important to get to know who all these people are at the local, state, and federal level. Have conversations with them all throughout the year. Go to events that you can meet them and have conversations with them. Again, meet their staff people. Become friends with their chief of staff. If you're specifically talking about within the legislative piece and government, it is getting to know those decision makers, those people that will give you the appointment with the influencer. Again, go to their events. If you find someone that you so strongly believe in what they are standing up for, partner with them in their own campaigns, because many of them do advocate themselves as they're out speaking everywhere that they're invited to go. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
So I would say,
That's great. There's one more thing out there.
looks like
And
Jamie
you've,
has her hand up.
oh, I see. Who is that?
Jamie
Jamie?
Detwiler from Hawaii.
Okay.
Hey, Jamie.
Hey, aloha, Deb. I want to go back to what you said about seek first to understand, then to be understood. I've taken the Covey course several times, and that's one of the main pillars there. And it just rings so true for us. And in Hawaii, we are not just a Democrat state, but a super Democrat state. And so I think, and I want to, give kudos to the person who said, well, to you, Deb, for saying, get to know your legislators. I made it a point to get to know several Democrat legislators this past year. It's about building those relationships. And many of them voted on really sensitive issues like grooming our kids in schools and whatnot. They voted on the conservative side. So it really helps to build those relationships when you meet them where they're at. One of my own district rep is a Democrat, and she's a mom of 2 young children. So I think it's so important for us to build relationships and get to know them. And on the other side of things, in terms of legislative actions, I work with an election integrity group, and we help to write bills over the summer. So our legislative calendars from January to May. So we use the off time to get together and write bills and present it to our minority caucus. And so we did this in the last session, and it went really well. The only thing here in the state of Hawaii, chairs of committees can kill the bill before it's even heard. So, but we're not discouraged. It just gives us more encouragement to keep doing what we're doing. So thanks,
Yes.
Deb. Great presentation.
You bet. Well, thank you. Well, and the thing about listening, being a good listener, it's like if you're willing to listen to them and hear their points, they will, I would say 90% of the time, are willing to sit and listen to what you have to say. And you'd be surprised at some of the things that you find a meeting of the minds, that you have common ground. We need to find, whenever we can, the common ground with others that might not necessarily be somebody that you would think you would be advocating with, but they are, they're important too. We may not agree with them, but they have, in the free nation that we hopefully can keep, those people have a voice as well. We may not like it, but they do. So, and they're often advocating for things that yeah, thank you, Jamie, so much. You guys are doing an amazing job. Okay, do we have another question?
Well, Isabel has shared,
Yes, I love that. Always begin with the end in mind. That's perfect. Just, what do you want to see in the end? And then it's kind of like building a structure step by step of where you have to start. And that's where it's those building relationships, building collaboration with people, and finding out who those people are. And again, I'm happy to send the notes. I don't know if eventually, I think we're going to try to get a QR code that can take the members to a direct spot on the NFRW website, that we might be able to just have those kinds of notes, including that in the resources.
okay. And Jamie just shares, she encourages building relationship with your legislators.
Yep.
As she mentioned, on both sides of the aisle.
Right, exactly. And if we don't like their policies, then we work to find candidates that put people that we want to be advocating for the things that are important to us. So let me see what else. Isabel, be clear about what outcome you want. You think ahead. Can you collaborate as an advocate with people who will help implement your proposed solution? Yes.
Okay, is that all the questions that we have? Looks like it.
I think so. Let's see. The hardest part. Somebody, Priscilla Nichols, just put something in the chat.
The hardest part, she says, is when she's pro-life and the response is usually or always negative. I guess we all want the best quality of life from the point of conception to the natural death.
Priscilla, I completely understand. This is a sphere that I've been in for 20 plus years in the abortion healing and recovery. It is part of my story, and that's what is a lot of what has taken me into the advocacy work in representing women hurt by the abortion industry. And so it is tough times because with all of the ballot initiatives going on around the country, there's I think 11 right now. We have one here in Montana, and I see Anne is coming back on, and we have a question from Sandy. So Anne,
Why don't you take the last session, the last question,
Okay.
Deborah, and then we'll end this episode
Okay.
of Bite-Sized Tools.
Sounds good. Okay, Sandy has her hand up. If you want to unmute.
I am unmuted. Thank you very much. I am a newer member to NFRW and Florida, and I have been an advocate in my profession for more than 30 years. And one of the things I want to help everybody understand is not everyone that you speak to really understands the legislation that they have either sponsored or believe they are voting for. Sometimes they take their staff opinion, and staff is demographically different than the elected. And sometimes the sponsor takes their advice from a colleague within the legislature who makes promises and makes statements that are not necessarily true. So one of the things that I have learned as an advocate is to make sure when I am speaking with the person that I'm trying to advocate my position is to make sure they understand the bill or the legislation, the issue, and who sponsors it from their side, and to try to get in that first 30 seconds, ask the questions and then go for the jugular, if you will.
Yeah. That's going to be a good training coming up here. We're going to need to put, because that's excellent points that you're making.
Well, it was. What great questions. What an amazing presentation. I want to thank you, Deborah, on behalf of NFRW and the program committee for such a dynamic and informative session on advocacy. This was a terrific bite-sized tools session. It really, really was. Kudos to you and Joni and the entire committee for all of your hard work and dedication. Friends, look in the Capital Connection for the next bite-sized tools on the third Wednesday of each month at 1 p.m. I almost said Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. Have a wonderful day. And Deborah, if they need to contact you, do you have an email that you can share with them?
Yeah, you can go to just probably the easiest one is debtilden@gmail.com. DEBTILDEN@gmail.com.
Well, thank you, Deb. And thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.